Okay, welcome to the latest episode. Now, we're looking at the verb être here, and what we're going to do today is demonstrate how, by simply learning the present tense of être, along with four other verbs, we'll see in a minute, that a person with very little French, very little vocabulary, can put together a kind of basic but passable opinion piece. Now, if you're doing the ordinary level, the theme of this piece is holidays, so it might still be relevant, but we'll look to get onto something more relevant to you in a future episode. So we'll just have a quick look down through these verbs. So être, the main one up the top here, to be. Now these are all irregular verbs. We've got savoir, to know, devoir, to have to, vouloir, to want, and pouvoir, to be able. So if you know the present tense, that's kind of like what's happening at the moment or what's generally the case of these five irregular verbs, then we're going to show how you can put together an opinion piece even if you have very little vocabulary other than that. Now, we'll just run through the first one. When we say verbs are irregular, we mean they have a funny pattern. They're kind of a bit all over the place. And être, to be, it's actually irregular in English as well, it turns out. We don't say I be and you be and he bees, etc. So I am, you are, he is. So je suis, tu es, il est. Elle est then for she is. On est, so on, kind of a bit of a general pronoun, can mean one is, or just people in general are, or it's also used instead of nous, which is we. You can also use it in the sense of we are. For a c'est there, generally it is. Nous sommes, we are. Vous êtes, that's you plural, more than one person, are. It's also used if you're being formal. And finally then if you're saying they are, so you got il or elle if they're all female, sont. Now, we won't go through all the verbs in the same detail, so it's basically just the same idea again. Savoir, to know, I know, you know, and so on. Devoir, to have to. Vouloir, to want. And pouvoir, to be able. And one idea will be to stop now and actually learn these five verbs before we start, and then see if you can remember as we use them as we're going through the piece. Now, what is the piece we're going to be doing? So, one problem with having a small vocabulary is going to be the issue of understanding the question. But if you have learned pouvoir, well, on peut, you'll know is one is able or one can. Passer then, literally like to pass or spend. Des vacances, as you might guess, like vacations in English. Holidays, formidable, great holidays on Irlande. Qui ne coûte pas trop cher. So which coûter then is to cost. So ne coûte pas, they do not cost. Trop is too, cher, dear, not too dear. Il n'y a pas besoin d'aller à l'étranger. So that expression, il y a, very useful. There is, or in this case, with the ne and pas again, there is not. Besoin is need. Aller, to go. And à l'étranger, abroad. So there is not, so there is no need to go abroad. So you can have great holidays in Ireland, which are not too dear. There's no need to go abroad. Donnez vos réactions. Now, how would we go about doing that if you, let's say, if you had rather limited vocabulary, but you just learned those five verbs? So we could start by saying I agree, or I don't agree. We're just going to agree in this case. And the way you say that in French, you say I am in agreement. So there's no real good verb to agree. So again, if you want to pause and have a think about I am, well, the answer is it's je suis. So that first verb we looked at, être. Accord is agreement. Now the word de, de, or with the apostrophe with a vowel there, normally tends to be of or from, but so they kind of say of agreement, literally. I am of agreement. Now, if you didn't know how to say that, if you want to say it is true, so again, if you want to have a think about it is, so that's also one of the ones we looked at there. Same verb actually, être, c'est, and then vrai is the true bit. If you didn't know either of those, you could just go straight ahead with your piece and take it from there. So what I want to say first of all is we know. We know that the scenery is very nice, or the countryside is beautiful, etc. So again, if you want to take a moment and think about we know, so the answer is it's another of those verbs just touched on, nous savons. In English, you don't necessarily have to say we know that the scenery is beautiful. In French, you must put in que, the that word. Now, the scenery then is le paysage. If you don't know that word, we'll look at other options in just a moment. The is, if you want to have a little pause and think about that. So again, I am, we said je suis, tu es, you are. So he is, or she is, or the scenery is just A, E-S-T. That would be être. So if it's scenery is very beautiful, then A, très beau. Very beautiful. Now, if you don't know the word for scenery, you could say la campagne is the countryside. Same sort of idea. The is again, you may have spotted there, just A, same idea. Now, this time the campagne, because it's feminine, will be très belle rather than beau. So normally when an adjective, a describing word, big, small, red, yellow, beautiful in this case, normally if it's describing something feminine, like the campagne, you add an E, but beau has an irregular feminine form, it's belle. Okay, so the countryside is very beautiful, that would be an alternative. If you didn't know either the word for scenery or countryside, if you happen to know the word for beach or beaches, les plages, we want to say the beaches are very beautiful. Now again, if you want to pause and have a little think about the R here, so it's going to be a little bit different. If it was just one beach, we say la plage est, E-S-T as before. But if we're saying the beaches are, we'll just look back for a moment, sorry, at être there. So again, je suis, I am, tu es, you are, and so on. If it's they, the beaches we treat like they, il, or in fact elle, because they're all female, sont is what we'd say there. So coming back here, then we'd say les plages sont très belles. This time the plages are feminine, so it's belle, and they're plural, more than one, so you have an S on the belle there. If you didn't know any of those words, beaches, scenery, countryside, if we were scraping the barrel just a little, les villages, villages are very beautiful. Again, if you want to pause and think for a moment about the R, well, it's the same logic basically as with the beaches, so it's sont, it's like they, and this time the beautiful, it's their beau. Okay, so B-E-A-U is your basic form of the adjective, beautiful. We saw it becomes belle in the feminine, but in the masculine, villages are masculine and plural, words ending E-A-U in French, instead of an S, you have an X. So très beau ici. Okay, are beautiful here. Now, next bit, so any one of those four options, not all four would do. And then at the end, we'll put together our final simplified version. Now, say the next bit, you could say, and that, for example, les monuments historiques, the historic monuments, or if you happen to know, if you didn't know that expression, if you're saying the old castles, les vieux is old chateau, or just a chateau on its own. So again, the R, you might have spotted there, again, it's sont, okay. Très intéressant, could say. So again, intéressant, the usual idea with a adjective is, if it's describing something plural, put an S on. So that's what we've done there, intéressant. Now, if you didn't know the word for castles or monuments, if you happen to know the word for churches, église, the old churches, by the way, vieux, that word for old, another of these adjectives with an irregular feminine form, it's vieille, with an S here because it's plural, the église being feminine. So the old churches, you could say, sont très intéressantes, depending on your point of view. But, so we said all that, but we're going to say we always want to go abroad. So again, we want, if you want to pause and see, can you remember, if you looked over those 5 verbs, we want it's nous voulons. Okay, nous voulons. Always bit is toujours. And then to go, as we saw in the piece, we respond to aller à l'étranger. Go abroad. If you didn't know the expression for go abroad, you could aller dans un autre pays, in another pays, a country. Or, if you were stuck on that, you could simply say aller en Espagne, ou au Portugal, or something like that. Now, if you didn't know any of that vocabulary, the countryside, the scenery, the castles or anything, how could we get by? Well, nous savons, as long as we've learned that verb, we know that. Now, we could simply say le Kerry et le Connemara. Not getting too many marks for our French vocabulary there, but it's getting us through. Par exemple, sont très beaux, are very beautiful. Et que, so again, we could just say Newgrange or le livre de Kells, one or other of those, the book of Kells, par exemple. Est très intéressant, it's very interesting. And then just mais nous voulons toujours, we always want to aller en Espagne. So it'll be a simplified version, but gets us through. Now, we could simply say now, it's sad or it's stupid or whatever. So it is, again, if anyone wants to pause and think back, so it is something we touched on. So c'est, and the options then be triste, to be sad. If you didn't know that word, étrange, you could use for strange. Stupide, stupid is almost the same, just with an E at the end. Idiot, a bit like idiotic minus the IC. Or if you didn't know any of those, ce n'est pas bon. It's not good. Maybe a bit lame sounding, but it would get us by. Now I'll stop there. We'll do the second half then in the next episode.